I'd like to bring on Dan Geltrude with what he thinks, America's accountant. Dan, thanks for being with us. It's great to have you. So what do you make of this? Is Elon's response here a hint that we should expect a competitor for LinkedIn in the near future?
Well, it's really hard to say because, as you alluded to, who knows what Elon Musk is really thinking. Now, he did go out and purchase Twitter, and he said he was going to do it and he was going to turn it around. However, that particular investment has struggled, and he's even alluded to the fact that Twitter may be a fail for him. But he's also at the same time said that he wants to put all of the social media platforms into one location. So could that be what he's building towards? We'll have to see. But certainly, when you look at Twitter/X, something's got to happen there because it hasn't been going exactly the way he had planned.
That's a good point. I forgot about that minor detail that he is trying to create X. Is this all, everything sort of platform, right? With multiple different options available on X. Perhaps that's where he was going when he changed the name recently. But I actually didn't know that LinkedIn was considered that cringe. I mean, call me old-fashioned, but I actually thought it served its purpose pretty well. What do you think? Do we really need a revamp of LinkedIn, or should Elon just be focusing on his pre-existing commitments to Tesla and SpaceX and now X?
I don't think necessarily that we need to replace LinkedIn unless he's going to do it in such a way where that type of platform is so dramatically improved that people are going to move away from LinkedIn or at least consider whatever he has planned. So I personally don't cringe with LinkedIn. I think it's relatively effective. But again, I don't see what he sees. So he may have a vision for an alternative platform related to employment and other things business related that we haven't even thought of yet, Allison. So we'll have to stay tuned.
That's true. We certainly will. It'll be interesting to see what comes of that. You mentioned Twitter. Maybe wasn't everything that he'd hoped it would be when he took over. What did you mean by that? Can you elaborate for us on some of the perhaps fails that you've seen with Twitter?
Sure. So he paid $44 billion, which by all accounts, including his own, is that he way overpaid for the value of what was there. Now, of course, if he was able to turn around and make it such that advertisers and other members would want to pay up and participate, well, yeah, then it would be worth it. I don't think he has seen that type of change in Twitter. I mean, there are a lot of things that he's done related to having to pay for your check mark and those things and having to pay for upgraded security. And I think that turned off a lot of people. And certainly because of his personality, there are a number of advertisers who really didn't want to be part of the platform. So I just don't know where he's going to take it from here unless he's going to morph X into something that, as we said, is some type of all-encompassing platform, and that will draw everyone to exclusively use X.
Yes. Alrighty. In other news, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Americans are now bailing on their home insurance. Dan, can you break this down for us? What's going on here and why is this happening?
Well, this is a very risky endeavor that some people are taking on. So let's be clear about one thing. People who are deciding not to have homeowners insurance on their homes, those are the people that do not have mortgages, because if you have a mortgage, the lender is going to require that the property is appropriately insured. So if there is some type of disaster, that they're protected on the mortgage side. So you have a number of people who are saying and doing the math and rolling the dice to say, I don't believe that there's going to be a major event here, a natural disaster, fire, or anything else. And therefore, when I do my calculation, what I will save over the term of home ownership makes it worthwhile not to have insurance. Or they have enough saved and they have that nest egg put aside. So if there was some type of catastrophe to their home, they would be able to pay to rebuild it. I personally don't like that approach. I just think there's too much risk. But again, there are people out there that are just saying that the cost of insurance is simply too high. And when they balance those payments versus what the risk is of something happening, they're deciding that it's worth the risk not to have insurance.
Very interesting. I think it goes without saying the cost of everything is too dang high under the current regime, but that's just me. I'm sure many others agree. Alrighty, let's move on to something that might make you laugh or cry. I'm actually undecided myself. But as we all know, the Democrats have been insistent on forgiving student loan debt for quite some time. Obviously, Biden has been teasing this for a while. Come to find out, his efforts were unsuccessful and student loans will indeed have to be paid back after all. But that's not the funny part, actually. The icing on the cake here is that the congressional Democrats who are behind this whole call for widespread student loan forgiveness, i.e., the squad, so think AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Jamal Bowman, are the very people who owe major sums in educational debt. As reported on 2022 tax filings, these four hold a combined total of roughly $1.7 million in student debt. Dan, what are your thoughts here? Are you at all surprised to hear this?
I am not surprised. In fact, I'm never surprised by any of the hypocrisy of what comes out of Washington and our politicians. So, to get to the core of the matter here, if you really want to resolve the student debt crisis, and it is a crisis, it's not to turn around and just forgive it all, because what happens? The next day, it just starts over again. So you haven't really achieved anything except saddling the rest of the taxpayers and the rest of people who were responsible for paying their student debt back with this new debt, because somebody has to pay for it. The real issue here is that college education is too high. Granted, but why is it that way? It's that way because getting student loans is just too easy. Number one, the colleges have no skin in the game, so they don't care how much you borrow. The other issue is people are simply uneducated about what type of debt they're taking on. And then finally, we have to change the entire system of how we're educating people. How about teaching people what they need to know, like being financially responsible? So I believe that people who are going to take student debt, they should be required to take some type of educational course, both them and their parents, before they're permitted to be able to take on all this debt.
I think that is solid advice, Dan, but sadly, I think it just makes a little bit too much sense, so I don't think they're going to go for it. But great idea. Dan, we're all out of time for today, but thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you for more?
You can always find me at Geltrude.com.